Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, and peace be upon everybody who's tuned in to today's show. First of all, I'd like to thank all the brothers and sisters who have supported uh, these episodes regarding the situation in Palestine, and especially the Gaza Strip, and now as we are witnessing in real time the West Bank. It's really heartbreaking, my brothers and sisters, and just off air, myself and John, which I'll probably introduce in a few moments. We're talking about the future for our children and our grandchildren as these terrible and horrendous acts of criminal injustice, genocide is taking place in real time, and we are witnessing the barbaric mindset of the Western governments and the hypocrisy of the Western governments. It's baffling for me as being a Muslim and witnessing the innocent killing of other Muslims, especially in Palestine. Of course, the innocent children, women, elderly men, and Yusuf Ismaili is backstage, but I'll bring him on now and I'll continue. Assalamu alaikum, brother Yusuf. Nice to have you on the show.
Good. Walaikum salam.
I was just doing a brief introduction, Yusuf, and then inshallah I'll pass the mic on to you. Recently, there is no holds bar, as they say now, when it comes to the onslaught of the Palestinian people. Hospitals, shelters, community centers, schools are currently being bombed, and even the UN chief is urging the violence must stop. And unfortunately, here in the West, especially in the UK, it seems to be falling on deaf ears. The US continue to supply US made MK-84 bombs that have been used to blow up schools, sheds, tents, I should say, and refugee camps and other buildings where innocent people are sheltering and being displaced and are staying, at this particular moment. And these bombs are given by the US government. Recently, I read an article, I don't know how true it is, that other armies or other nations have actually sent in small portions of their own military to help the IDF murder and take part in this genocide in Palestine. And before I continue, I want to, of course, introduce John. John, peace be upon you, brother. Assalamu alaikum. If you don't mind
Alaikum
just
salam.
introducing yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, some of you who watch the show will have seen me before, but I'm a member of the Workers' Party, and as you will know, the Workers' Party have campaigned for Palestine, as have our leader George Galloway's campaigned for many, many years. Many of us have been aware of this situation for a lot of years. It's not a case of jumping on the bandwagon, but what's happening at the moment, as you suggest, has gone to another level. And as you say, you can't shoot a child in the head with a sniper rifle if nobody, if you're not given the bullets by someone. You can't drop all those bombs unless somebody gives you the bombs. But the other, I mean, if it wasn't bad, if colonialism wasn't bad enough already, and this wasn't bad enough already, the excuses and lies that are so prevalent now within the mainstream media and by politicians have caused us to lose, as a society, if you like, in the UK, a complete. We've lost the moral high ground. We can't. The only thing we had to shout about was the idea that we're a democracy. How can we be that if we lie about such things? And that should be a concern for all of us, and it's a concern for the future as well. And as you say, those of us with children, I think we all have children here. Um, it's just, what kind of world is this going to be?
Absolutely, John. Well said. Before I bring on to our brother Yusuf Ismail, our co-host, I just want to emphasize that as being at Speaker's Corner last Sunday, so many of the brothers from the different Dawah channels approached me and really praised us for the work that we are doing and highlighting the situation in Palestine and in Gaza. I was really warmed, to be honest, and I was welcomed with open arms and a lot of smiles. That, alhamdulillah, thank God that our channel is one of the few channels that are willing to speak up and speak about the situation in Palestine. So that was really nice from all the brothers and sisters from Speaker's Corner last Sunday. So that's really nice for them to do that. So I'm going to bring on our brother Yusuf Ismail, our co-host of the South African Debate Initiative. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Yusuf.
Wa alaikum assalam, and peace be upon you and to brother John and all the other viewers and listeners out there. And yes, you're correct. We have maintained this consistency non-stop for the past several months now, commencing from last year, where we started having these joint initiatives and joint programs. And what we need and what he has been lacking is more and more organizations, Islamic organizations, Muslim bodies, YouTubers. There are YouTubers out there that have millions of subscribers, and they have made comments here and there, but they need to use their channels more appropriately, not just the kind of general off the cuff back and forth internal refutation. A lot of these channels that have a large viewership and have the potential to make some sort of change, unfortunately find themselves bogged down in intra-faith debate as opposed to interfaith debate, which I support. But intra-faith debate is insular, it's closed. There may be a room for it in certain quarters and certain, particular constituencies. But in a general sense, it's not relevant when you see what's happening in Gaza. And as you correctly pointed out, just yesterday, and we lose count. These incidents happen. It's not just a question, like, for example, you see some of these major massacres or atrocities, 9/11, which just happened a couple of days back, I think 23rd or 22nd or 23rd anniversary of 9/11. But that's been the only 9/11 that the United States have experienced. But there have been many more 9/11s in different parts of the world, which people don't remember. And what you see in Gaza right now, what the trauma that the Americans purportedly experienced some 23 years ago is being experienced by the Palestinians on a daily basis. I mean, we keep on speaking about the schools and the long-term impact pertaining to the education, but just in Gaza yesterday there was another Israeli strike on the UN school, and this was a school formerly used for education, but now used to shelter displaced Palestinian refugees. 18 people were murdered, and 6 UNRWA employees were also murdered, making this arguably one of the most deadliest attacks in UNRWA's history. I've in fact shared with you the link. I've shared with you the link on Al Jazeera, which basically shows that the survivors, there's scattered body parts all over. That's been approximately the 5th to the 6th time that schools have been hit since October 7th. And what you find is that the Palestinian Foreign Ministry is now demanding international protection against the war of extermination and displacement of the people. Hamas, as usual, basically reiterated that it was prepared to implement the US proposed UN-backed ceasefire plan that was announced by this buffoon called Joe Biden in June, without any kind of new conditions, and Israel rejected it. So it's quite clear that Israel is at fault in this given circumstance, and not Hamas or the Palestinians in any capacity. I think I've presented the particular link. That's a screen. That is the Al Jazeera report, which in fact shows the attacks that happen. In fact, look at the date. I wasn't, in fact, aware of this. The irony of the situation: injured Palestinians are brought to hospital for treatment after an Israeli attack on an UNRWA school in the Nusayrat refugee camp on September 11th, 2024. So that's basically, when was that? Wednesday. That was Wednesday. The attack happened on Wednesday. 18 people were killed. The attack flattened part of the Al-Juhani school in Nusayrat on Wednesday, and in certain instances, in fact, created a crater. I sent you some of those videos. I don't know if you saw those videos or were able to download them or willing to show some of the images. But there was, in one particular area, a massive crater that was created as a result of this particular bombing of this particular shelter. And as you pointed out, the Secretary General has stated it's totally unacceptable. But it appears to me that this kind of outrage and this kind of disregard of basic principles, as Al Jazeera pointed out, of international humanitarian law, is selective. If this happened in any other part of the world, for that particular matter, this kind of carnage that you are seeing, there would be global outrage by the governments. Right now, there's global outrage by the particular populations of Western nations. And I've seen, and I'm warmed to see in Amsterdam, in Germany, which has been banned, but people have been speaking out, in France, in your country, the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Latin America. The main enemy that we've got to these protests and what's happening in Gaza is regimes, the Western regimes. There was an interesting interview speaking about the weapons and the armaments being sold, but there was an interesting interview on LBC by James O'Brien where he utterly ripped apart a pro-Israeli apologist. I think it was just a few days ago, on the newfound adopted position of the UK government, and particularly David Lammy, your foreign minister. And the point being made was that even though there was a particular suggestion to reduce the weapon supply, the point is that the United Kingdom still continues unabated to supply Israeli government with weapons to continue its bombing of these Palestinians. And one can go on. You know, some months ago, we were talking about, and I can basically show you this screenshot here before I this year, like a nightmare but real, surviving Israel's attack on Gaza's Al-Mawasi. The talk was, at the beginning of this genocide, that everyone was going to go to the south, and then they were going to go to Rafah. And then when Rafah was being attacked, your rotten and corrupt Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom made a point.
Can you just get rid of the ad at the top of the screen, please? Sometimes
okay,
it's a bit.
Sorry.
Sometimes it's not.
Let me just try and see.
If you can, or make this screen bigger. That's
seeing this ad. I'm not interested in this ad. Yeah, this is
yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Ads. We have no control over these ads.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. So the point I was basically making is that the Israeli ambassador then made the point that there's this Al-Mawasi area where Palestinians can go as a kind of a last resort, the Al-Mawasi wasteland, because people were questioning, where do these Palestinian people go? They're kept in a cocoon, like sheep in a pen. Everywhere they go, they are attacked. And now, of course, you see that even the last remaining outlet, the Al-Mawasi area, which is essentially a wasteland, is basically being bombed. There was a 3-story deep crater that was created, started a large fire. And this goes on. This goes on unabated, as you can essentially see. I sent you the video which was circulating on social media, and it was basically shown, as the Al Jazeera report stated, that the huge damage made us realize that these were meant for largest buildings and not for tents made of the weakest materials in the world. So there are refugee camps, tents made of Teflon and little material, and they're using these massive bombs which are meant to destroy tunnels. They're using it on these particular individuals and areas. And look at the outcome. We've seen so many such situations where people have been bombed and destroyed and murdered and killed. And this is on the 10th of September. You remember some months ago, we were talking about the the entire tent catching alight and people were being burned to death. We forgot about that. People have now forgotten about that as there's a new scene. This is the clip from Al Jazeera showing the image of the particular tent, the scene of the tent attack.
12:20 a.m. when the Israeli forces carried out a massive attack here in Mawasi Khan Yunis, in this humanitarian safe
Can you hit the
designated
bottom
area.
corner square so you can make the screen bigger?
Is after the
Okay.
Israeli forces
That's it.
targeted this.
So
the
just
AM
to,
when
this
Israeli
is this is on the 10th of September. That was on Tuesday.
forces carried out a massive attack here in Mawasi Khan Yunis, in this humanitarian safe designated area. This hole is after the Israeli forces targeted these makeshift camps with at least 5 Israeli airstrikes. According to eyewitnesses here, they're saying that at least 20 families were living in this area. Now, what we also need to know is it took hours for the civil defense teams to rescue those Palestinians trapped under the sand. Now, according to the medical teams, they said that at least 60 Palestinians were also injured. This area was an agricultural area. We see plastic houses for plants, and this is the only place where Palestinians were able to come and live here. We see massive destructions. All of these tents and all of these plastic houses are made of plastic. That's why it's very easy for them to burn. Now, this is not the first attack on the humanitarian safe designated zone in Al Mawasi Khan Yunis. This has been happening a couple of times in the past couple of weeks. But however, Palestinians here are telling us they do not know where to go and nowhere is safe across the Gaza Strip.
So can you see that this is what we're dealing with? And we've spoken about this for some time. So the last remaining area in the Gaza Strip, the Al Mawasi area, which your disgusting Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom mentioned repeatedly in numerous interviews on the BBC, that look, there's this Mawasi, even that, the last remaining strip, the last portion in Gaza is now totally eliminated and destroyed. And this is a reality of the situation that you've got here. So I don't see any significant change by your government when they state that they want to reduce the weapons supply. Essentially, it's business as usual. Of course, the United Kingdom is not a major weapons supply, but nonetheless, it's still an active supporter of the Israeli regime. And not surprisingly, the call and the sudden stance by Keir Starmer and the Labour government is a little too late. It's too late for what they're doing when people are being murdered and butchered and destroyed, and families and generations have been destroyed for decades to come. The impact's gonna basically have a devastation. The impact is going to go on for decades upon decades. One analyst stated that to get Gaza up and running may take up to 50 to 60 years. That's the level of devastation. And just to think about, just to do a comparison in terms of I think the number of bombs, if you just do an ordinary search, just Google, anyone can Google number of tons of bombs in Gaza, how much has been basically leveled on Gaza itself. They basically, by late April 2024, it was estimated that approximately over 70,000 tons of bombs were basically used by the Israeli Defense Force, these Israeli thugs over Gaza. And that, in fact, surpasses the bombing of Dresden. It surpasses the bombing of Hamburg, and it surpasses the bombing of London combined during the Second World War. So people were talking about the Dresden argument. That doesn't even that no longer applies now. That no longer applies, because if you take the total bombing of Dresden, the total bombing of Hamburg, the total bombing of London, combining it during the Second World War, it doesn't reach the estimate that Israel has dropped on Gaza. And the strikes themselves have left more than 42 million tons of debris, according to the United Nations. That's enough kind of rubble to fill a line of dump trucks, according to one analyst, stretching from New York to Singapore. You compare the distance from New York to Singapore, and you have a series of dump trucks that are carrying rubble. That's the amount of rubble and debris that has been caused by this particular bombing campaign. And the estimates of approximately rebuilding it are nothing under $1 billion. This is $1 billion US dollars. So this goes to show what we're dealing with: the savagery, the inhumanity, the evil, the sadistic nature. I mean, and this is just simply on the aspect. I mean, if Israel hasn't done anything else, I mean, like what they've done, like shooting and raping and murdering and killing people in cold blood, which they're doing daily. But I mean, if you just were to leave aside all of that, I mean, this alone itself is beyond evil. It's beyond comprehension. You compare any modern war zone in modern history, what's happening. I mean, you look at Syria, you look at all these other, Yemen, for that particular matter, the Saudi bombing of Yemen and all of that, compare all of that together. It comes nowhere clear and nowhere near what you see in Gaza. Nowhere near in Gaza. If it takes approximately, if some are saying approximately 50 years for the development and for the so-called massive reconstruction challenge to take place, you're dealing with, a kind of a point of no return for the immediate generation of Gazans, which possibly the subsequent generation that may benefit in the future as a result of any construction or reconstruction attempt that may be engaged in over the next couple of years. And that's the reality.
If I am able to just share something, Yusuf, if you don't mind me sharing that myself,
please.
And
Please do.
Other of my colleagues on the show have been receiving some very negative messages, phone calls, abusive, threatening from a particular nutcase who was on
Who is
our
this guy?
show.
Yeah, share the guy and share his picture. Shame him.
Oh, okay. I'll do that once John's got something to maybe share. But I just want to really express my not concerns, but I just want to really emphasize, brothers and sisters, how important these streams are. That we need to share these streams out onto your social media, onto your WhatsApp groups. There are people out there, unfortunately, who want to shut this show down. And myself, Yusuf, and other members of our I said extended family members have been receiving phone calls, WhatsApp messages, phone calls at our work, making allegations about myself and brother Yusuf, that we are some part of some Israeli organization and some conspiracy theory or a plot that we are doing. So, brothers and sisters, I really applaud, and I really encourage you to help this channel grow and continue to share, like, and subscribe. May Allah make it easy for all of us. But we continue, from day one, myself and brother Yusuf, we started these shows, and there only used to be about 6 or 7 people who should tune in to watch these shows. But now, alhamdulillah, we're getting double figures. But still, we are being shadow banned, no doubt about it. Like Dr. Imran mentioned previously when he was on my show, even himself, when they spoke about the Palestinian issue in Speaker's Corner, their channel has also been shadow banned. So, of course, once again, I urge you, brothers and sisters, to like, share, and subscribe, and please hit the notification bell for upcoming podcasts. John, you got something to share?
Yeah, I think I am sharing it. I think you have to. Do you have
There
to
we
do
go.
something at your end? There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, just really just the issue that we've been talking about in terms of. I just thought it was quite a good presentation. This is the kind of impact of very specific targeting. I'm saying that, of course, sarcastically, because if Hamas were the subject of the target of any of the weapons that caused this destruction, they must have been in every building pretty much. But just to go back to the stats there, because we do like stats, but these ones unfortunately are extremely unpleasant. Looking at the cumulative explosive power of Israeli bombs dropped on Gaza, you've got there, you will know about this, Brother Mohammed, the mother of all bombs, the GBU-43B or MOAB, mother of all bombs, 11 tons, represented by that
They were
small
to go into
orange.
caves and mountains. They were designed
Yeah,
to penetrate.
big.
Yeah.
11 tons of explosives. And then you've got the Russian bomb, nicknamed the father of all bombs, most powerful non-nuclear weapon in the world. I'm not sure if that's ever been used. I don't know, but that's a much bigger orange dot. And then you've got in 2020 the amount of ammonium nitrate stored at the port of Beirut in the capital city of Lebanon. You remember that explosion killing at least 218 people? That's a much larger orange circle. And then you've got 1921, an explosion in Germany, up power 1,000 tons. That was obviously not in any sort of conflict. That looks like it was an accident. Halifax in Canada. I heard about that one. That was a massive explosion, 2,900 tons, when a French steamer exploded with high volatile explosions. And there we've got the first nuclear bomb used on Hiroshima, 15,000 tons. You can see a much bigger orange circle. And then we have the Gaza Strip. 20. So this is like making the first atomic bomb look pretty minor. More than 25,000 tons of explosives on the Gaza Strip, only between October the 7th and November the 2nd. Although we know that was when they were doing the carpet bombing at the beginning. I think that's it. Actually, you just see if there's any more. If you want to unshare that now, you can. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable.
It is. It's just heartbreaking, the effects that this genocide is having on the children, of course, the innocent. Brother Yusuf, I wanted to ask you a question. 1 second, let me just see what.
I just want to parallel what John stated a few minutes ago, just to share this screen, because it ties in exactly, and just for purposes of the public getting this information out, and that they can clip some of this information and share it with others. This just goes to what John stated. Look at the screen share. This is the Turkish Middle East. This is the news magazine. What's it called? The Angelou, the Turkish. This is from the 4th of June, which basically states, and just look at the devastation, dropped as of June, 70,000 tons of bomb on the Gaza Strip, exceeding World War II bombings in Dresden, Hamburg, London. As you can see, the imagery. I mean, there's something called genocide, but there's a term where you destroy infrastructure itself. And they did a comparison that when the Germans bombed London, they dropped something like 18,300 bombs between 1940 and 1941. That's 18,300. The Allies dropped 8,500 tons of bombs in Hamburg in the summer of 1943. The Allies also used 3,900 tons of bombs in Dresden in 1945. But Israel has beaten the lot. So, we used to hear this argument, and I pointed out again of this Dresden. Well, this basically, it shuts it down. It shuts down all these kind of useless excuses which people and the far right and members of the far right media were bringing up about the Dresden argument, which we were addressing in any event. But that is rubbished by the facts on the ground. That this is no longer about Hamas. I mean, it's got nothing to do with Hamas. It's got to do everything with the decimation and the destruction of Palestinians as an entity, as a human group. And one could even make a point, and I do understand we've had many Jewish rabbis here that would obviously oppose the state of Israel. But, one could make a point that there's, to a certain extent, some degree of religious precedent in their actions, based on what you see. I sent you an image just now as an example. That just to give an example in terms of what the settlers are doing on the West Bank, besides the destruction, there was a video that I had sent you just this afternoon, Mohammed, where these settlers wanted to take the sheep and the cattle of these Palestinians, but they were unsuccessful. But what they did then, because they could not take them, with the help of the Israeli Defense Force in Gaza and the Israeli military police, they poison these animals. They poison these sheep. And you can see these images and video images of the sheep being totally poisoned in real time by these Israeli thugs. So it's got nothing to do with self-defense. Even if one were to now, at the highest level, make the argument that this is all about self-defense, private defense in criminal law, and indeed in international criminal law, has certain limitations. Even if one were to make the argument that the aim of Israel was to go after Hamas, which it is not, and which we've questioned from day one, but even if one were to make that particular argument, the aspect of proportionality in terms of what Israel has done on the ground totally destroys the argument of self-defense, even though we've made the point that, from day one, it was never about self-defense. But even if you want to invoke and give them the benefit of the doubt and apply the concordist approach when dealing with the satanic state, that's why we call the stream Israel's satanic state, being a killing machine and a rape machine. Even if you want to apply the concordist approach with them, the self-defense argument falls. I had a case, and I'll just give you an example now. It's a private case. I'm a public defender, and we deal with murder, rape, and robbery. There was an individual that was attacked, and he was attacked. There was a function, like many of the people here. They go to taverns, they end up in fights, and one of the individuals followed my client, to his house and started hitting him with a knobkerrie. Now, a knobkerrie, for those UK Britishers who don't know, is basically a long stick with a little knob at the end, which can cause quite significant damage. You can kill someone with that. It's more harder than a baseball bat. And so he was struck numerous times, and the individual went to his house. And the gentleman, the accused, what he did was that he took out a machete, which he had, and then he struck the individual who was attacking him. But he struck him in such a fashion, and I saw the pictures, that his brains were basically lying on the floor. And the accused is charged for murder. Now, in such a circumstance, the inevitability is, and I'm predicting, as has been the case, is that he is going to be convicted of murder by virtue of the fact that at that specific point in time where he overpowered his assailant, he exceeded the bounds of self-defense. So even on that basis, you are convicted of murder in a normal private criminal law setting. Imagine the situation with Israel. They've gone beyond that. They've gone beyond even the normal element of private defense. We've made the point there was never defense in the first place. So this is the point that I can just stop sharing the screen in relation to this, but just wanted to share that before you go to your question, Brother Mohammed.
Yeah,
sorry
I've just actually put the link in the chat right now. We don't want any nutcases joining the stream.
Do we have nutcases tonight?
I've just put the link in the chat right now. It is an open platform, an open challenge that we are asking those particular individuals who feel Israel had a right to defend themselves. And this is one of the reasons, Brother Yusuf, I've kind of kept the imagery separate, because I don't think we should show the imagery straight away, because that can sometimes deter people to come on. Because unfortunately, as some of the people in the chat right now are from the US, they don't see the imagery that we are able to access. I think in the US, we currently saw the debate, which is a debacle, and you can see how they were each falling over each other just to say how much we love Israel, how much are we willing to defend Israel. They're falling over each other, psychopathic nutcases. And I've put the link in the chat if anybody wants to come on. Like I said, the rules are very, very simple. All you need to do is put your camera on backstage, and then if you want to come onto the main stage, you can turn your camera off. We normally have, as Yusuf, you're fully aware of, we have some nutcases who always come on, leave some abusive comments in the private chat, refuse to put the cameras on, and then run off like little boys. So if you're willing to come on, have a discussion, a cordial discussion, the link has been pinned.
Yeah. I just want to make this point. I mean, besides, and since you mentioned the debate, I saw the debate. It was a disgrace. In fact, it was an easy debate to win for Trump if he had the cudgels to tear apart Kamala Harris, or both ways. But both parties have got no morality, no scruples. In fact, the discussion on Gaza was limited to who hates Israel more. I mean, you couldn't make it up. Trump, in the discussion on Gaza, accused Kamala Harris of hating Israel, which is absolute nonsense, because she's as pro-Zionist as her present demented and senile president is. And so it's quite clear that the Jewish lobby, AIPAC, and many of these other factors and elements are very powerful in terms of policy decision making. And there's a saying, and John Baker probably concur with me, that even if the entire U.S. Senate and the Capitol building falls down and crumbles in the ashes, and the Democrats in the Senate and the Republicans will start blaming each other as to who caused it, even in the midst of devastation and disaster, the one thing that they will still be unwavering is their support for the sadistic state of Israel. I mean, in the heights of genocide, you call and you give a standing ovation to a monster. And so I want to basically move on to this aspect, which I wanted to share, I think 8 days ago. This is part of the discussion which we were going to include. And for those out there who are interested in coming on and wanting to challenge us, well, you've got a tall ask to basically deal with. This is from the TRT World, well-known news magazine, which basically focused on the rape of Palestinians by Israelis, which we've exposed now at length in many reports, and we've got all those reports with us. Rape of healthcare workers, rape of Palestinians, civilians, rape of individuals that they accused of being Hamas, where they raped them anally, these Israeli soldiers. But this article states that Israel's rape entitlement stems from its foundation. Rape and female mutilation has been one of the cornerstones of Israel's foundation, with the moral decay seeping into its army first and then society. This is a remarkable article, is that it starts off the fact that Israel's rape problem is rooted in the country's very foundation. Ever since 1947, raping Palestinian men and women has been a constant feature of the state's existence. What's the famous or the infamous rape case that we have? The Deir Yassin massacre. In the Deir Yassin massacre, committed by this thuggish group, the Irgun and the Stern gang, these sexual predators were basically raping and massacring Palestinian men, women, and children, and killing up to 200 to 300 people in one afternoon. It goes on in the article. Slowly and steadily, the crime that victimized Palestinian people began to permeate into Israeli society. The social generation happened in phases, this degeneration. Phase one involved the creation of Israel in 1947. That's in the making of the state, the Jewish state. Rape was one of the tools used in displacing tens of thousands of Palestinians. And I may add that they quote the Israeli historian, Benny Morris. Benny Morris has had numerous spats with Norman Finkelstein. And Benny Morris is a pro-Israeli historian himself. But he himself has exposed and spoken about the cause of these armed Zionist gangs going on a rampage 1948 onwards, killing Palestinians, raping en masse, raping and mutilating their women. And in fact, despite the fact that Morris has even justified the violent methods of David Ben-Gurion, he still identifies these massacres that have been basically committed by the Israel. And so the point behind this is that when you take into account that these Zionist terrorist death squads were engaging and operating under the orders of Ben-Gurion, engaging in mass killings and rapes in several Palestinian neighborhoods. What you find is that this lay the foundation and the underpinning for what then became the Israeli Defense Force, because the IDF is essentially the combination of Irgun, Haganah, Stern, and all these death squads operating in the 1930s and the 1940s, which were responsible for the killing of even British civil servants like the King David Hotel and all of that. These death squads became the IDF. And so when you see the IDF engaged in systematic rape, it should not be viewed as anything which is inherently unique or an aberration, because what people want to present, and I think people need to know this, those Israeli supporters and Israeli apologists who should be ashamed of themselves and hang their heads in shame, is that there is an attempt to present rape and killing by the IDF when it's been committed by the IDF as an aberration. And whereas when it's basically allegedly said to be committed by Hamas, which is now known as false because there were no mass rapes that took place on October 7th, it's been totally debunked. When they make the propagandist piece against Hamas, they generally present this as something which is inherently normative. So whenever you have something which is being done by the Israeli regime, if it's not in the public eye already, they will cover it up. When it comes out in the public eye, there is an attempt to essentially state that this kind of sadistic behavior is not normative. It's not inherent within the Israeli system, but this is just simply an aberration, like you get your bad apples and your rotten apples. And I think one of the points that we make in this particular streams and other past streams is that these kind of sadistic, evil, satanic behavior is very much what makes up the Israeli system. This is inherent in the Israeli system. The lack of care, the lack of empathy, the lack of kind of shedding your tears for the destruction of your fellow man, like the protests that you see in Tel Aviv, these shameless protests that are happening, again, rightfully so, against the Netanyahu regime. It's still, however, only limited to calling back for the Israeli hostages, where the Israeli protests for the Gazans that are being massacred and murdered and raped by these Israeli soldiers. Where's this? None of this happening. So this article is an excellent article. I'm going to post it in the stream and certainly in the YouTube chat for those who want to access it. They even give examples of the former Israeli defense minister, Yitzhak Mordecai, who was convicted of sexually assaulting 2 women. In 2010, Moshe Katsav was jailed for raping a female subordinate when he was a cabinet minister. So these cases of sexual violence are widespread but unheard. But you know what's the remarkable thing? And I'm going to end this with this. The organization behind the atrocity propaganda of October 7th, that organization, you know, we always heard about the rape propaganda and the stories of the rapes that basically came out. And I shared this in the past, Brother Mahmoud. I don't know if John was here on this particular stream or in the past, but people need to know about this, that there was only one organization. We can share this link here. There was only one organization that was a source globally for the stories of executed children, burning of babies, and rape of Israeli civilians by Hamas, which never happened. And that was an organization called Zaka. Zaka, this is the organization, Zaka. And this was the famous interview we showed. And I think that was a stream that we showed, if you remember, Muhammad, that was removed by YouTube. We played one of the videos and it was part of Al Jazeera, and that stream was removed from YouTube. I'm not going to play that. But this was the interview by the Zaka leader, Yossi Landa, who was exposed and his lies collapsed on camera. This was the organization behind the actual story of mass rape propaganda and the atrocity propaganda. But what is remarkable about this is that the very founder of this organization called Zaka, the very founder of this organization called Zaka, was run by an individual that himself was known to be a notorious pedophile. You don't believe it? Well, let me show you something. Let's leave electronic intifada aside. I want to show you something here for the viewers out there. And since the chat is increasing and people are coming up and the Israeli defenders are here, this is the organization. I'm going to share this, and this is from Wikipedia. You can challenge Wikipedia, you can challenge me, but I just want to share this particular stream. Let me just share this this particular slide and this encyclopedia. This is an online encyclopedia, Wikipedia, but the source in this instance is authentic. Here's it here. This is the organization that spread the atrocity propaganda, Zaka. The full name is Identification, Extraction, and Rescue. They faced insolvency before October 7th, amazingly. They, given the job of retrieving the dead bodies after October 7th, they started fundraising. By 31 January, they raised over 50 million shekels, $13.7 million. So they were facing insolvency before October 7th. After October 7th and after the atrocity propaganda and the mass rape lies, they raised up to 13.7 million. But that's not the remarkable thing. The remarkable thing, and I hope they haven't removed it here, is that the individual who is the head of Zaka, Zaka's co-founder and main figurehead of more than 30 years, was awarded the prize, the Israeli prize, in March 2021. The Israeli prize is basically the award bestowed and regarded as a state's highest cultural honor. This chap here, he was a notorious pedophile. Here's a guy. Here's a guy here. If you can see him, he's a notorious pedophile. The sick, satanic psychopath was an Israeli social activist, a member of the, and founder and chairman of Zaka. That was the organization behind the atrocity propaganda and the rape propaganda against Hamas. He died in coma, of a coma. He stayed in a coma. But the story goes is that he actually raped boys, girls. There was sexual abuse allegations. He was basically stated to have abused children. There were little boys and little girls that he was said to have sexually abused and molested. All of that. This is the background behind the individual. Channel 13 gave a report about the abuse allegations and the level of the abuse allegations. In fact, some of the officials now, since they discovered that their founder was a pedophile, have apparently attempted to wash their hands. But it's quite remarkable, and it's the height of cynicism that an organization that spreads the worst atrocity propaganda of false mass rape and false rape of children was founded by an individual who was a notorious pedophile. That's Israeli Hasbara in full swing. This is a shameless organization, the shame that you have. And it is remarkable when we have Muslims that have come on the stream that have attempted to find all kinds of moral justification for the satanic state. You can't make any kind of moral justification. A state that is founded on genocide and rape, that was sustained over the past 70 years through genocide and rape, and now sustains itself for its particular survival on the basis of genocide and rape. So those who are now spreading the atrocity propaganda of Hamas having raped Palestinians, of Hamas having killed babies and civilians and burning them alive, which is now all debunked as false, know this, that the news that you are getting comes from an organization which is founded by a notorious pedophile. So what does it state about you as an individual human being, that you are so sick and sadistic that you can't make the discernment between truth and falsehood, and you have to rely upon a source of information coming from an organization whose founder is a pedophile? What does it say about you? It says that you're a sick human being yourself. To support and promote this kind of sick atrocity propaganda and lies of the worst kind. Shame on you, and shame on your satanic agenda and your satanic ideology that you want people to believe and accept.
Yeah.
I'll leave it
Brother
at that.
Yusuf, if I could, I mean, I really appreciate this information because I'd not heard of Zaka before, and I've just been. Thank you for putting that up, Brother Mohammed. I mean, what I was surprised about when I looked on their website was it seems that they're in some way linked with the United Nations, which. And that does seem to be reflected in their badge. And that actually is quite confusing to me. But can I also say as well, because I've been looking at the chat, and as Shaz has mentioned, all of this information about the rapes that are going on is not making it into the mainstream news at all. And I suppose we shouldn't be surprised, because that's the whole reason why we're putting this information out on this show, is because it's not being put out. And we know, and you may know, Brother Yusuf, that British journalists are being, and American journalists, and maybe others, are being arrested right now for doing precisely that, just doing no more than we're doing. So people, you aware of this, Brother Yusuf? The is it Sarah Wilkinson being house arrested and having all of her equipment taken off her, her mother's ashes thrown everywhere by men wearing balaclavas. So we're literally being terrorized. People are being terrorized because they're telling the truth. And this information that we're looking at the moment, you can unshare now, Brother Mohammed, is in fact something that's being withheld from us. But Shaz has made the point that that is not the case when it comes to Muslim grooming gangs, which we're constantly reminded of the case that's occurred. I mean, there have been a number of grooming gangs actually in the UK, as I'm sure there are everywhere. It's probably not such, unfortunately, not such a rare thing as it should be. But the idea of entitlement to rape, am I entitled to rape my wife? Because I would be horrified by that idea. No one is entitled to commit an act of violence. And yet this is exactly, somehow they seem to have arrived at this conclusion that this is their entitlement to do this. And therefore they exercise that. So this is a really sick culture. And I feel so sorry for all the decent Jews out there that must currently just want to hide their heads in shame because they don't want to be associated with any of this whatsoever.
Yeah, well, I just want to make one point. If I'm still clear there, I just got a message right now by one of the sick people that have been contacting us. Muhammad knows that. Why are you referring to Wikipedia? Wikipedia is not a good source of information. Well, let me just share this with you. This is not Wikipedia. This is Haaretz. Haaretz is a well-known, it's a leftist paper in Israel. You've got people of Gideon Levi. And here, for your information, since you are doubting my source and the material, you can fact check me, because everybody wants to fact check this article. Here's the organization that was first on the scene and spread the news, and CNN, BBC, Sky News, every major news channel in the world relied on Zaka for the information in terms of what happened on October 7th. Well, here's the article in Haaretz, which basically speaks just a couple of years back that the founder of Zaka, who up to recently was still heavily involved in it, even up to, I think, just before his death, had a darker side, taking advantage of religion for decades with the knowledge of others in the communities, the accusers stated. A young woman from ultra-Orthodox is accused Yehudi Meshe Zahav, the Zaka emergency, sexually assaulting her in 2011. This, however, is just one of many such accusations against a man who has this year won an Israel Prize, a Haaretz investigation, basically. So he was involved in grooming. He forcibly undressed me. This is just one example that you've got of various kinds. But his accusers say there's a different Meshe Zahav, someone who does not care about the ages, gender, or marital status of his victims of sexual assault. So he was sexually assaulting young boys. He was sexually assaulting young girls. Many people in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Mia Sharam, Shmuel Hanava, and Sanhedria Morvehet repeatedly knew about his actions. Even members of the ultra-Orthodox community's so-called modesty police guards knew, but never reported to the police. According to the accusers, he was known to boast about his sexual exploits back to the 80s. His status, power, money, and even the organization he heads. He allegedly exploited his status, power, money, and even the organization, that's the organization behind the atrocity propaganda of October 7th, to assault teenagers and younger children, both boys and girls. And so this is the entire list. The story goes: 41 abused in 1996 at 16. Mehdi Shabaf was 36. It goes on, this entire list. Have a look at the Haaretz article. This entire Haaretz article, which deals with boys, girls, young children being, sexually abused, violated, anally raped, anally penetrated. Different instances. And these are the full reports. This is a Haaretz article. So for those of you who want to fact check me on this. And this is the organization behind the atrocity propaganda. I'm saying, when I say this, I'm not saying this is one amongst many organizations. I'm saying this is the organization, the sole organization that every single news outlet in the world relied upon to spread the Hamas atrocity propaganda. The burnings, killings, rape of children, beheading of babies, all of that comes from this organization. So think about that when you want to repeat the same propaganda to your next door neighbor and your friend. And it is this atrocity propaganda that was used to devastation by the Israeli state to justify its genocide that you see happening. So this is the darker side that unfortunately people don't see and they don't read, because maybe they're involved in other things. They're involved in listening to propaganda, involved in Instagram, whatever social media outlets, listening to rubbish TikTok videos, but don't do any reading. This is what happens when you don't do reading. You get caught out. And those who want to justify the rubbish that is happening and want to state that, look, Israel's targeting Hamas. Well, if that is the case, how do you now answer the question that Israel is targeting Hamas based on information that was relayed to it from an organization founded by a pedophile? Explain that to me, please. And Piers Morgan and many of the, and I've never seen this discussed on any of the major channels, BBC, Sky News, Talk TV. Now, I've never seen this discussed in any major news outlet in any part of the world. It's only in the Electronic Intifada that has been doing phenomenal work. And you've got public funded media like Democracy Now! By Amy Goodman. I think she may have discussed it. And of course, other possible a few podcasts, but I've not seen this in any major news outlet, Western media at the very least, in the world in terms of what we see.
And yet they were all happy to tell us about the babies that were beheaded, so-called, and the mass rapes that occurred on October the 7th, before there was even any chance to investigate what had happened. They were quite happy to throw all of that in. Unquestionable. We had to all accept that. Of course, some of us might have questioned it at the time. I don't know.
Did you see the video, John? John, did you see that video where Zaka? You didn't get to see the video. You did see that video, right? Where he was exposed for his lies by the Al Jazeera reporter.
No, but I think I'm going to follow this up. If you could perhaps,
I'll share. Let me share that now. I think it's important.
Link,
let me share the link right now. It's a few minutes, but I think it's important that people see this.
Yeah.
Here we are. I'm gonna basically share this, Brother Mohammed, and I think it's important that people view this. This is the presently after Yehudu, the pedophile, died. I'm gonna call him the pedophile. After he died, he was replaced by Yossi Landa. This is this guy who's now heading Zaka. Now, I want you to listen to this, and I want the viewers to listen to what they see. It's a few minutes long, but just listen to this.
Can you make the screen bigger, Yusuf, please?
I will do that. We'll do that. Here we are.
Okay.
2 days later, the regional head of Zaka, a voluntary organization charged with collecting bodies, gives a different account to Sky News of what happened at the same house.
And you're talking children, 2 piles of 10 children each, were tied to the back, burned to death. This is something behind. This is next level. And
I mean, it's actually indescribable. It's indescribable.
It's indescribable, and I won't describe everything that I saw.
This account is repeated by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a conversation with President Biden.
They took dozens of children, bound them up, burned them, and executed them.
Lies again.
The list of the dead shows 2 12-year-old twins are killed when police and army stormed the house in Be'eri. But there are no other children.
It was an interview we did with Sky Television from Britain. 2 piles, we found them in Bury. 2 piles of 10 children each were tied back to back and burned to death. Now, again, I mean, if we look at the death figures at Bury, there are only 10 children that died at Bury.
Well, not children, it's 18-year-old. So we all together, when you look at them and they're burned, you don't know exactly the ages. So you're talking about 18-year-old, 20 years old, and you just don't look on the spot identification to see the ages or something like that.
It is not the only questionable story that Yossi Landau tells about Kibbutz Be'eri.
Oh my God, crocodile tears.
Then we see a woman. She was lying on the floor, puddle of blood, big puddle of blood. She was a pregnant woman. Her stomach was butchered open. The baby that was connected to the cord was stabbed, and she was shot in the back.
Kibbutz Be'eri has denied this account.
The story of the pregnant woman reported by Zaka is not relevant to Be'eri.
Yossi Landau insists he witnessed this scene at Be'eri.
If you want to see the picture, I have the picture of it.
Are you able to share the photographic evidence with us?
Now watch this. Watch how he gets exposed.
To show you. Yes. Where's my phone? Oh, I'm sorry. I will not put it in front of the camera.
No, that's fine. I'll come and look.
This is the knife they used.
Shot, killed, but
Over here was the woman.
But that's the imagery after the bodies had been cleared away. Oh.
Yes. This is the baby. This is it.
I'm sorry to be graphic here, but I can't see a baby here.
You can't see the baby but this is the picture of the...
You can't see the baby.
Okay.
For sure. You know, we didn't think when we were over there, we didn't think to camera everything. We didn't
think to camera everything, but you're just showing a picture. What were you taking?
That this wasn't in our...
Look at his face.
The photo shows an unidentifiable piece of charred flesh. The list of the dead contains no victim that fits Yossi Landau's description. On October 7th, 2 babies die. One is killed when a bullet is fired through a door. The other dies following an emergency cesarean after the mother is shot. Neither is burned or beheaded.
You being someone who, with your own hands, with your own eyes, with your nose, you smelled this, what would you say to that person who is downplaying what took place here?
I wouldn't say anything. I would ask, please give me, he should be together with the Hamas terrorist and he should be killed because he's a part of it.
Visiting celebrities continue to be shown babies' cribs, and the world continues to be told stories about murdered babies.
When you're taking babies, cutting them and tying them together and burning them to death, you're treating them less than an animal.
1,300 people dead, murdered, babies.
These bastards put these babies in an oven and put on their oven. We found the kid a few hours later.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken describes the fate of 2 small children.
Family of 4, a young boy and girl, 6 and 8 years old, and their parents around the breakfast table. The father, his eye gouged out in front of his kids. The mother's breast cut off. The girl's foot amputated. The boy's fingers cut off before they were executed. And then their executioners sat down and had a meal. That's what this society is dealing with.
This story also comes from Yossi Landau and Zaka. An analysis of the evidence suggests that it is also untrue. Of the 782 unarmed victims of October 7, 36 are children, 13 under the age of 12. None died in the circumstances described by Antony Blinken.
Wow. You know, if you look at Orwellian society and George Orwell's 1984, I mean, my hair was standing on an end listening to how propaganda basically is manufactured. You know, you listen to read Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent, and you read of how he says you see propaganda before your very eyes in real time being manufactured, and people don't see this. Shocking.
Listen to Blinken. For Blinken to repeat this, it's either stupidity or complicity. Which one is it? I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, he should know better than to repeat this kind of nonsense. Brother Mohammed, can you pin a message from Amat, a great message about Amat Uraman? He said something like, I'll repeat it, every Israeli accusation is a confession.
Is a confession.
And I think I've heard this before, but this is a very important point, because these people are very good at lying, and the lies that they are telling are designed to horrify people. They're designed to be repeated. These are memorable lies, and this is design. But what it reveals is what they are capable of themselves. So this statement is very, very true. Every Israeli confession, every Israeli accusation is a confession. This is what they are doing.
I mean, and you see it in real time. I mean, for example, the mass rapes, there were no rapes, but now we know Israelis and the Israeli soldiers have raped Palestinians.
Thank you.
And they're defending. There's no beheading. There was no beheading of babies by Hamas.
No.
But now we have seen in real time, and we've seen actual imagery of Israelis beheading Palestinian children through the bombing campaigns and shooting them. In the case of Hind Rajab, multiple times. We've seen the accusations of Hamas allegedly burning Israelis. That was also false, but we've now seen in real time Israelis burning Palestinians day after day, and sometimes even directly, as in you see many of these Nusayrat refugee camps. So the point is, every accusation, everything that Israel states that the other side is doing, it is doing. It's
Another
like
one is the human shields.
The human shields.
Hamas.
Yeah,
this is another one. They're literally doing exactly what they accuse Hamas of doing.
They in fact, the human shields is so shocking that Human Rights Watch and many of these other organizations are basically challenging to say, look, what Israel is doing now is a violation. I mean, like they haven't violated many other aspects of international law, but they're using Palestinian children as human shields. They're using civilians as human shields, Palestinian children. This is happening deliberately, and deliberately putting them in places and in strategic places in front of military targets. You see, when they make the accusation of human shields against Hamas, the general argument is they can't explain whether it's directly or whether it's indirectly, or whether they are just being kept there, or whether they are just simply indirectly using these specific areas where the Palestinians have hospitals and schools, and they're just hiding there because they know full well that Israel will never target it. So they're not clear in terms of defining what they mean when they accused Hamas of using Palestinians as human shields. But when it comes to the Israeli army's use of Palestinians as human shields, there is no ambiguity in what they do. And I'll give you, this is the latest report and Human Rights Watch report. I just want to share this as an example so people can again see that this is not made up. Here's the share screen. Brother Mohammed, if you can just share it. This was on the 3rd of July, 2024. And they showed this was just one single example amongst many, using Palestinian civilians and compelling them to enter dangerous combat zones, evidence of a systematic tactic of the army. The leaked horrific scenes were obtained and published by Al Jazeera reveal how Israeli army uses civilians, included injured detainees, not Hamas, as human shields, and forces them into hazardous combat zones after installing cameras on their bodies and binding them with rope. So there's no ambiguity in how they're using this is deliberate human shields. Each of the aforementioned acts of criminal brutality constitutes a grave violation of international law and a fully fledged war crime. So the reality of the situation and I mean, this is the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor, which confirmed this. And in many instances, you've got elderly people. This is one example. The Euromed Monitor field team documented a compound and comprehensive crime. A family comprising of an elderly woman and 4 children, including 3 young women and 1.5-year-old granddaughter, was attacked with gunfire and bombs. They were then later taken outside and detained for over 3 hours, despite their sustained attacks in the initial attacks at their home. And then they were used as human shields. The 65-year-old mother, she identified her son, who was run over by an Israeli tank and then killed in front of her son. The Israeli army also used a 59-year-old doctor, Yahya Deeb al-Khalaya, and a number of his family members as human shields on the 20th of March 2024, after storming Gaza and forcing al-Khayali to stand on the balcony during an exchange of fire with gunmen west of Gaza City. I mean, that's not your accusation against Hamas. Your accusation has never been that Hamas is even doing this. You are saying that, look, Hamas are basically going to hospitals and areas where there's high civilians that are populated, high civilian population, and thereby placing them in danger. So even your accusation against Hamas as using Palestinians as human shields is nowhere near the brutality and the insanity in terms of how Israel is using the civilians as human shields. The Shifa medical complex, where they accused again Hamas of using Palestinians as human shields, again, Israeli forces use civilians, including patients and displaced individuals sheltering inside the complex as human shields. To protect their military operations within the hospital and its vicinity, Israeli forces exploited Palestinian civilians by making them form human barriers to surround Israeli soldiers and military vehicles, or sending them under threat to residential homes and buildings to either help arrest or forcibly evacuate other civilians before army raids and the subsequent destruction of many of these particular buildings. This article goes on. This article goes on, shocking. 3 Palestinian children used as human shields on the 5th and 6th of May. This is a couple of months ago. The children were made to walk in front of the soldiers as they searched residences and asked people to evacuate their homes. Israeli soldiers shot 2 of the children after resting their rifles on their shoulders. And Euromed Monitor previously issued a detailed report titled Israeli Matrix of Control, Use of Palestinians as Human Shields, documenting case of Palestinian civilians used as human shields. And this is going back to the 8th and 6th, 8th of July to the 26th of August, 2024. According to the report, Israeli forces used Palestinians at least 6 incidents. This is the past, 2014, 2009, 2012. So every accusation is a confession. So don't come again. You know, those people who have come on this platform before, don't come again and have the audacity and the nerve to come and embarrass yourself and insult us, but more particularly embarrass yourself by suggesting that Hamas is using Palestinians as human shields and therefore Palestinians are being murdered. That's rubbish. Take that rubbish and throw it down the toilet. Take that rubbish and throw it down the garbage chute. Or take that rubbish and throw it in Lammy's toilet in 10 Downing Street. Don't come with the garbage on this platform. We won't allow it again.
I've been searching for a document I was looking at. I can't find it at the moment. Somebody might be able to find it out there. Somebody had gone to the trouble of demonstrating in a target, you know, one of those targets they use in shooting ranges where you grab the head and the torso. And they were looking at children who were shot in the West Bank. And I think there's been something like 200 odd children shot in the West Bank over a certain period of time. I can't tell you exactly what period of time. And 22% of the shots were headshots. And something like 53. So the document demonstrated perfectly. You see where the bullets are going. Now, these are sniper shots that are deliberately targeted to kill people. right? So you can't be same as the journalist who was shot in the head. This was a clean shot in the head, and the 2 shots I think in the back of the head. So this is deliberate targeting that's going on at the moment. And the worrying thing is they seem to be deliberately targeting children. One of the children was shot in the back seat of a taxi, sat next to a mother, by a sniper, by an Israeli sniper. I mean, how low can you go in terms of the depths of inhumanity? It just beggars belief. I can't even.
It's not only that. You know, the I'll give you one example of the lies that your Western government come. You know, you remember the Flower massacre that people were talking about. This was in March, where the Palestinians were going to when Flower was dropped, and
Yes.
they were and what the Western news article basically showed was that, look, these people, and they attempted to justify that these people were killed in a stampede. Now the question, and that was mentioned by, I think, one of your well-known panelists on the right-wing talk TV, Julia Hartley Brewster.
God,
You know,
yeah.
pathetic. But
Yeah.
here's a report, and so she was questioned, if you can share this, how many people that die in a stampede die with gunshot wounds to the head? Because these individuals, and she had no response, and they don't have a response,
No.
because a UN medic saw the people at the Israeli Flower massacre that had gunshot wounds to the head. So if they are dying in a stampede, as you allegedly claim, then how do you deal with the testimonies and the reports that come out, particularly showing, even at Gaza's Al-Shifa, and this is by the UN chief, Antonio Guterres spokesperson, when they visited, the UN team visited some of the wounded at Gaza's sheep, they saw a large number of gunshot wounds. 70 of the dead, about 200 wounded, were still there during the team's visit. And these were gunshot wounds, not stampede wounds. And 70 of those who died died being shot. So how can you claim that, how can you claim that they're dying through a stampede? And if they died through a stampede, how many people that die in a stampede have gunshot wounds to their heads? So this is rubbish. We have seen people with we have seen amputees, children as young as 12 that were injured yesterday. I mean, this is insane. This basically goes to that Flower massacre story, that Flower massacre that went on, and the majority of the injured were hit by gunfire by the Israeli troops, heavy shooting, and what were they looking for? They were looking for Flower. There were shots to the head, neck, or chest. So, as you stated, John, I mean, these lies can no longer be kept. The director of the hospital then told that of the 176 wounded brought to the facility, 142 had gunshot wounds, and the other 34 showed injuries from a stampede. So, if you are arguing injuries from a stampede, how do you explain the 142 gunshot wounds? Meaning there would have been 142 bullets. And 142 bullets come from 142 shootings, meaning at the lowest scenario, the IDF snipers and these thugs would have had to, at the lowest level, have shot 142 times to people who were basically looking for Flower.
What I've noticed is that when I remember, of course, when the news broke about this Flower massacre, because at the time it seemed like one of the worst things that had happened. Although now, actually, it seems pretty minor compared to what's happened since. But when the news first breaks, you don't get to hear all of the details of how many people were shot, for example, right? So the likes of Julia Hartley Brewer can, wax lyrical about what she thinks, what's her interpretation. And then it's only later on that it comes out that what you're saying, Brother Yusuf, about how many people were actually shot. So Julia Hartley Brewer gets away with it just because there's this time window between when the news is released and then all the other information comes through. I think what needs to happen is that these people are held accountable for what they are saying publicly over the media. Now, maybe I shouldn't just blame her, or I don't have much sympathy for her because she works for the station after all, and she said the words. But presumably somebody has given her an auto cue to read from. But these people need to be held to account for the lies that they're telling now, because those lies prolong this situation more than anything else.
No, I agree. I agree indeed. This is indeed the case. And this is what the Israeli Hasbara has basically done. Omar, do we have anyone in the chat that wants to join us?
Unfortunately, we don't. I did put the link in about 45 minutes ago. I don't think anybody wants to come on because there's too much evidence, to be honest, to
exactly.
let them come on. I just want to mention regarding the pier that the American government wanted to build to bring aid into Gaza. Do you remember that? And unfortunately, a lot of people have forgot about that now.
No, I haven't forgotten
you know how
about
much it cost? It cost $230 million to build that pier. It only lasted 20 to 25 days. What's happened to it, or what's all the plans that they were, going to implement and send aid into the Palestinian people? Total farce. And unfortunately, Brother Yusuf, go ahead, John.
Well, you said 230 million.
Yeah.
So why would they spend 230 million unless they were there was something in it for them? So was it about diplomatic? It looks good for them or something like that. Were they actually doing it to drop aid off? There was certainly a delay from when they built it to when the aid came. Or were they in fact dropping something else off on the pier that might have suited them? Because these things have a habit of coming out later on as well, don't they? You don't get to find out why did they spend 230 million pounds on a pier, but my guess is there's a reason, a good reason.
Yeah.
There is a question for you, John. If you don't mind reading it out and answering it.
Not at all. Oh yeah, so I'll read it out and then answer it. Yeah. So what's the least that the current British government can do immediately to undo some of the damages, even if it's just symbolic? And is British politics held hostage to ICL like the US? So I assume then it's an American asking the question, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I mean, the least that it can do is what it's doing already. It's doing the least that it can do. And I think that, you have this thing where someone like Keir Starmer, who is the leader of the Labour Party in the UK, which I've noticed on CNN, I read a report about saying it's interesting that a centre-left party is now in power in the UK. Well, let's be clear. It's not a centre-left party. It was the working class party. But what they have to do is they have to make a show of we're still the Labour Party. We're not as bad as the Conservatives and all the rest of it. But actually they are. And the crumbs that David Lammy has thrown to us in terms of demonstrating, how we're pulling the Israelis into line. It's not really any different to what the Americans are doing anyway, because the Americans are kind of saying, we're sort of telling the Israelis off a little bit at the moment and saying, don't push it too far and all the rest of it. But this is diplomacy. And this is the bare minimum. So I would say that, I don't know if that answers your question, but to me, they are doing the bare minimum. And this is cover for their lies, and it's cover for the fact they're still demonstrating practically that they are supporting Israel by sending them weapons and equipment. So they're not they are doing the minimum. It's the minimum.
No, go ahead. They're still selling, and I may just add one other point is that if this recent Labour Party winning has been presented as a kind of a landslide victory, but if you actually compare the Labour Party's previous wins under the war criminal Tony Blair in 1997, and even Clement Attlee in 1945, Starmer actually won a far smaller vote share than either Blair or Attlee. The party's win was not to some sort of kind of widespread support for the policies, But essentially, I think people were fed up with this kind of, the 14 years of the Conservative Party rule. And of course, you had a situation of Nigel Farage's Reform Party taking also a significant number of the votes from the Conservatives. And then you had the Scottish National Party collapsing, the collapse of that vote. There was a low national turnout. So the thing is, Labour was held back. The mainstream media has kind of attributed the collapse of the Conservative Party and the win of the Labour Party due to the substantial kind of Muslim minority. But in reality, that's not the entire. That's not. I don't think that's a real situation. And I mean, Labour is by no means an enemy of Israel or is anti-Israel. At least the present Labour government. By any means. I think I'm told that apparently Keir Starmer on an individual level some years back was somewhat critical of Israel. I'm not so sure how true that was.
I mean, look, they've all received money from the Israel lobby. Starmer has received plenty of money. And in fact, Starmer it is, well, I mean, maybe it's irrelevant to say it, but he is now practicing as a Jew. He's practicing Judaism, and I believe his wife is a Jew as well. And but not that that's the point. But I guess his position may have shifted in terms of all of this. But he's certainly taken money from the Israel lobby, as has Reina, as has Lamy. And I mentioned this before, that there is a list out there, and I have a copy of it. Might not be up to date with the amounts of money of at least some of the Israel lobbies that have gone to British politicians. And it includes those within the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, and the Liberal Party. And George Galloway refers to these three main parties. I know some of the Americans won't have heard of the Liberal Party. It might surprise them that there is such a thing. But that he refers to them as the blue Tories, the red Tories, and the yellow Tories. And for those who don't know, Tories is another word for Conservative. In other words, they're all the same. It's not even two cheeks of the same backside. It's in fact three cheeks of the same backside. They're all getting backhanders in much the same way that they do from, for example, the pharmaceutical industry. So the drug lobbyists. And I asked this question to comrades in my party the other day about what exactly is the difference between bribery as a politician and lobbyism. What is the difference between being lobbied and being basically bribed? And it seems, and you might know something about this, Brother Yusuf, because of your, education and practice in law. But and I don't know whether it would vary from British law. But I think the distinction is quite subtle. And I think in actual fact, to say that you've been bribed, this is just my thoughts on it, that it would have to be absolutely blatantly explicit that you were saying, I am giving you some money specifically to do that. But they're all receiving money. So I think, they're
Is this a report, John? Is this a report? Maybe you could take us through it, but I've seen this report now on the screen.
Yeah.
Declassified UK. Tory politicians have accepted, this is a large amount, £430,000, and made 187 trips to the country by John McAvoy.
I'm surprised it's only that smaller amount. I would expect it, honestly, I would expect it to...
Well, maybe it's a prudent figure that they give it. The figure may be slightly higher in relation to what they've got here.
Well, for one thing, there's more than one lobby. There's several different lobbies, and there's some well-known ones like APAC. But I mean, there are several different lobbies, and I think the total amounts of money that are being received, I suspect, are a lot more than that. But is a lobby, is money from a lobbyist an incentive or reward for doing good things? I guess it is, but what about if you don't comply? What happens if you decide that you didn't want that money and you didn't want to go along with all of that? You've changed your mind. What would happen? And I think there may be some kind of threat there in terms of what would happen. And we know how far the Zionists' death grip can extend itself when they can just bang away independent journalists who are just sharing news.
Yeah,
we should be worried. We should be really worried.
Unfortunately, there's nobody coming to dismantle us or challenge us. It's been an hour and 30
I
minutes.
see in the private chat is a link shared in the private chat.
Yeah, it's been posted it's been pinned, and it also has been put in the chat also. And here it is here.
Yeah, I know that.
I
Red one, yeah. Did you put that one up? In the West, they call it lobbying. In Africa, it's bribery. Well, I guess that sounds good for Africa to me, because at least they're being honest about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got Paul Bedson. Paul, assalamu alaikum. Hope
Hey,
you're everything's well. Great to see you in the chat. I just want to thank everybody in the chat for making this show interesting and positive. And we've kept the trolls away. From the previous show, if you haven't seen it, if you do watch it, make sure your children are not listening. It was quite abusive, very negative. And I'm hoping to arrange a discussion with Anam, who was seemed to be a pleasant guy, but unfortunately he wasn't feeling too well. So he said possibly next week or the week after he will be available. So Brother Yusuf, stay tuned for that.
I think the trolls have been kept away by John. He's like a Jedi Knight, so probably the Force. They don't want to come.
I honestly think the mood on here today, it's like we're not really in the mood to sort of hold back in terms of especially in terms of anger, because spitting feathers, I suppose, is the phrase that comes to mind. I'm not going to swear, but you'll understand what I'm saying. Is they are just taking the Michael out of all of us by getting away with what they're doing, and having so much of the media and the politicians in their pockets. We've kind of, a lot of not just us, but a lot of people are working this out bit by bit. Starmer's popularity ratings are in his boots at the moment, and it's not just because of the the issue in the Middle East. It's also because of what he's doing domestically. He's just, you may not know this, Brother Yusuf, but he's just got rid of the winter fuel payment to pensioners. So even in the constituency that I live in, there are 12,000 pensioners who now have to decide whether they're going to put their heating on this winter, and it does get cold here, and risk having their heating disconnected because they can't pay and get into debt, versus leaving their heating off and risking hypothermia. And there is no doubt that pensioners will die this winter. The worst thing about it is that Keir Starmer himself has hypocritically said in the past that he's accused the Conservatives of similar such things. It's I don't have the detail on that now. Before we finish, I do want to mention the event on tomorrow, Brother Mohammed. I'm not sure how much time we've got left.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I do that now? So
yeah, go ahead, please do.
So basically, there's a big event in Nuneaton tomorrow. It's a Palestine fair. It's in Edward Street in Nuneaton. There's two different buildings that it's across. It's free entry. There's free food. There's going to be lots of stalls. They're expecting hundreds, if not 1,000 people there. Lots of party members of the community, people coming from all over the place to it. Now, I want to mention, I won't mention his full name, but there's an 11-year-old boy who lives in Nuneaton by the name of Hassan. And if you're out there, I want to say hi to him. I will be seeing him tomorrow. He's got a stall on this Palestine fair. His mother Habiba, who may also be watching, will be running that store with some party members. We're helping her. Basically, the store is a bookstore. The book is a book written in part by Hassan, who, with a group of other children, is basically writing books to raise awareness about the issues that Palestinian children are facing at the moment. The book is called Voices from the Olive Trees. I need to check that, actually. I've got the book somewhere nearby as well. Voices from the Olive Trees. Certainly, if you Google that anyway, it'll come up. I'm not plugging it because it's making anyone any money. I'm plugging it because Hassan has basically said to me, even before he wrote the book, in the election campaign, he contacted me via his mother and said he couldn't understand why people didn't care about Palestine. Could I explain to him why people weren't doing more about it? And that was a tough question, but I tried to answer his question, and he decided on the back of that he was going to do something. He said, "I want to do something to make the world a better place." And when an 11-year-old says that to you when you're an adult, you have to listen, because you realize that this is real compassion, and this is something that you can't miss that opportunity. So I want to help him with his book and with his mission, which is the same as mine, which is to raise awareness about Palestine and shame those people who basically won't speak up, too scared to speak up, or even bizarrely find some way of arguing and justifying this state-sponsored terrorism that we are witnessing, that is still ongoing. Sorry for that rant, but
no, John,
I'm
do you
looking forward to...
want to just go and grab it so people can see the book, physically see the book? I think I've got it here on Amazon here.
I do.
Voices from the Olive Trees.
I got it. You got it. I have got it here, actually.
It's a beautiful cover.
This is a book, and you can see on there it says Rising Heroes. So the Rising Heroes are a group of children who have collaborated together. Thank you, to write this book. It's been sold all over. Well, it could be sold all over the world. I mean, I'm hoping that some of the Americans over there might spot this and maybe start plugging it. And it's a collection of different stories, and it's because it's for children and it's written by children. You wouldn't expect it to be too graphic, or some of the issues we've discussed today. You really wouldn't want children listening to some of that, right? But from a child's perspective, this is just about the suffering. But the book is also about hope as well, and it's about awareness, and it's about a sense of what is right and what is wrong, and what is just and what is clearly not just. So because it's a message from children, I think it's very important.
I'm going to order it now, mate. I'm going to order it myself now. Guys, it's only £3.37.
Because what we're doing, that is literally the cost of what it took to produce the book. Okay, that's just the covering the cost. There's no profit being made there, but we're going to sell it at the fair tomorrow. We're going to bump up the price only a little bit to support the charities that have organised the event that's happening tomorrow. It starts at 11 o'clock in the morning, Edward Street in Nuneaton, and it finishes at 5 o'clock. There's going to be a lot of good food, a lot of good discussion, and hopefully people will take some sense of hope from it, knowing that there are other people out there who are also human beings and actually care about all of this. I'm actually looking forward to the day.
I'm buying it now, mate.
I really appreciate that, Brother Mohammed.
It's a phenomenal initiative, John, and I must say, I really support this initiative. That we should in fact get these. It's a children's book, right? And I'll tell you what.
I've done it. I've just placed an order. Should be coming tomorrow.
Phenomenal. I'll also try and place an order, because we had a similar situation in South Africa. If I
arriving
could share
tomorrow,
Mohammed, because we had a similar book that was done by. There were two authors. It was I'll just try and share this here, but it's shocking. It's amazing that South Africa, which speaks out against apartheid, and we've basically been involved in the genocide convention. Our largest book supplier. This is a book supplier called Exclusive Books. They actually pulled this from. This is a kid's book. This was, in fact, it was, when was this? This was by, this is a report by a local South African organization called Ground Up, which deals with grassroots activist issues. And this was a coloring book aimed at educating children on Israeli occupation. The book was called From the River to Sea. It was illustrated by Natin Gubane and published by Social Media Bandit. It was supposed to be circulated to various schools and in South Africa, but unfortunately the largest retail book supplier, which has a number of Zionists on their board, remove this.
Yeah, I'm
from
looking
their-
for it now on Amazon. It's not there.
Yeah. So they removed it, and
Oh yeah, it is.
basically-
I've got one. Coloring book by
coloring book,
Nafi Nugabank. I can't pronounce it.
Natim Gubane, and published on social media. It was supposed to be given en masse. It isn't anti-Semitic, but the author received hate, and you've got this sadistic organization. We must deal with them at some point, called the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, and the Rabbi Warren Goldstein, a really nasty piece of work. That one of the factors that led to this particular removal of this book, and they defended the idea that Zionism is a core belief of the Jewish people, which is total rubbish in any event. And that was one of the bases in terms of why this book was deemed anti-Semitic, which it was not. And they then subsequently removed it from circulation. So it's a classic example of how the Zionist propagandist machine has been working on.
Do you
Of course, it's
mind
not
if I
as
share
popular
it?
as it was before with social media, certainly.
Yeah, I'm going to share it. Bear with me, guys. There's 3 left. I'm going to place my order now.
Yeah,
So
and right to our book suppliers, right to the book suppliers in South Africa. From the River Sea, that's it there. That's been removed from the largest book supplier in South Africa, the major book supplier, exclusive books, by virtue of the fact that they were advised by the repulsive Board of Deputies and the fact that a number of members of exclusive books are Zionists themselves. And this was just a simple, ordinary, innocent book removed.
British Airways had to apologize because a customer complained that one of their stewards had a badge like that, like a lapel badge, Palestine badge on their uniform. So this is the kind of censorship that we're putting up with. You can't say anything that offends anyone in this way. Amat Uraman, who's made some fantastic comments, and it's very clear how people are touched by this story of children reaching out to Palestinian children, and it really resonates a lot with parents, I think. But they have said that Amazon doesn't work in Pakistan, and so I'm wondering if there's any way that we could get a book to them by posting it or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Have we got any ideas?
If you don't mind, John, saving one book for me from the stall, and then hopefully we can meet up next week.
Sure.
If the sister wants to send her email address to me, and then I can send her the book, inshallah, without any charge whatsoever.
That would be fantastic for her. She's made some fantastic comments this evening. Really appreciate that, especially what she's saying about the comment about children being pure. This is why it means so much more. I've of course met Hassan and his mother. Very impressive young boy. Really cares and wants to make a difference in the world. Truly a leader for the future, I would say. This is the kind of moral example that our leaders should be setting for us, is demonstrating compassion and humanity for others, not making up excuses for killers and rapists.
Let me just email in the private chat. Yeah, so if you want to, sister, if you want to quickly come on and put your email address in the private chat, and then I will, inshallah, contact you and then get your address, and inshallah, I'll send you the book free of charge.
And she writes good English as well.
Yeah, definitely. Alhamdulillah. Okay. If you want to put it private chat, it's up to you. I can email you, and then you can send your address to me via email if that's any better.
I'll get her a signed copy as well from
Fantastic.
Hassan. I'll get him to sign it tomorrow, and it will mean a little bit more.
Yeah,
and I will also
I'm going to send one to Brother
well.
Yusuf. I'm going to send one to Brother Yusuf. So if you can save me maybe 3 copies, and I can send them to various people.
If it sells out, we might have to order more, but I'll still get it signed.
No problem. No worries.
And I think it will sell out,
Yeah, inshallah, God willing.
Inshallah.
I hope you have a very good event, and where, inshallah, it will be very beneficial.
Very
Also,
much.
please, John, try to take some pictures and some small videos if it's possible. That'd be fantastic. And we could do a follow-up stream.
We're making a video.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, brothers and sisters, thank you for joining us. If you haven't watched my 2 debates with the Ahmadi cult in Speaker's Corner, I found it really mind-boggling how this particular Ahmadi by the name of Muhammad was mentioning that his so-called prophet Mirza Ghulam Ahmad has nullified the acts of jihad. That jihad, meaning fighting against oppression, is not allowed because his false prophet Mirza Ghulam Ahmad declared that you cannot do jihad against the oppressor. If you watch that debate I had with him, it's called Pakistan, I think 1974. That's when the Pakistani government declared this particular cult as non-Muslim because they believed that there was another prophet after the Prophet Muhammad. And of course, they believed that this particular individual claimed to be Jesus, peace be upon him, or a reincarnation of Jesus born through another mother. But yeah, if you can watch that clip, you'll be very shocked in some of the beliefs of the Ahmadis or Qadianis. So please watch that clip on my channel, on my YouTube. Fantastic, sister. Okay, I've got the email address. I'll take a picture. And also you, Brother Yusuf, I'll get your full address, and God willing, I'll send you a copy, a signed copy if possible, John. If you can get a couple of signed copies, that'll be...
I will also get him to put the names in as well. Amat Rahman and Yusuf Ishmael. I'll get them signed in that way. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Thank you, Brother John. You've been a fantastic guest, and I really appreciate it. We need to raise the awareness of the people of Palestine, especially through the eyes and the lenses of the children. And that's quite harrowing, the aspects that children are describing conflict and war and destruction and genocide, and it's coming from a pure heart and a pure soul. It's very, very heartbreaking at the same time, but we need to express and share their thoughts to you. So thanks for watching, brothers and sisters. Thank you to all the moderators. Of course, thank you to Brother Yusuf Ismail and John. Final words, John, I'll let you go first, and Yusuf can end the show. I'll give you a minute or so, John. Go ahead.
It's always a pleasure to come on the show, and it's a pleasure because I feel that there are like-minded people here, not just yourselves, your good selves, but also people in the chat as well. I mean, it's kind of a shame that we don't have someone to argue with, but maybe we should save that for another day. I just really appreciate getting an opportunity to mention about the event tomorrow as well, which has been a long time in the making. And it's going to be an absolutely massive day. So if anyone can get to that would be fantastic. And if you will see me there, of course. And there's a number of speakers I'm going to be speaking. So is Hassan as well. He will be speaking. Imagine it, 11 years old, standing up in front of hundreds of adults talking on a microphone. That's the kind of young man that he is. So I think I'm very proud of him, and I'm hoping for a great day tomorrow, and that some hope comes out of all of this, because at least we can see that there are other human beings out there as well.
Thank you, John. I wish you the best for tomorrow, inshallah, God willing, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Hopefully after a couple of days we can meet up and maybe have another meal in the restaurant, inshallah. Yusuf,
sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. And hopefully Paul's already there already. Look, a great show.
Hey, Paul.
Nice to see you, Paul.
Oh, great. Look forward to seeing you, Paul.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yusuf.
Paul and I had this interaction with this character some time back. I think one of the previous streams, if you recall, it became pretty heated up some time back. John, we certainly support your initiative, and certainly with this boy Hassan, may his voice be a kind of a precedent for subsequent generations of young children to come and speak up against not just injustice being committed by Israel, but injustice in different parts of the world that we see. But certainly in this particular present context, within the framework of the Palestinian resistance, we certainly support this initiative from all the way from South Africa, and certainly support his voice and all power his voice. And with the listeners out there, we want to thank you for listening and joining this chat. Please do share this particular show. There is no copyright. We're not going to call you out for copyright, or you won't get a strike. Share it on WhatsApp, edit it, take the clips, make video clips, share it. And of course, look at some of the other channels out there. There's some great, fantastic networks like the fantastic Electronic Intifada, run by the excellent Ali Abunima. There's, channels like Democracy Now, run by Amy Goodman and Juan Gonzalez. In the United Kingdom, you've got a remarkable journalist, a chap called Owen Jones. And then you've got a good alternative media outlet called Novara Media, also online, which speaks quite consistently about the Palestinian struggle and the oppression and the genocide in Gaza. And certainly share this particular chat and make sure that you do your research, get the information out there, and confront the propaganda. Don't take everything that you see in social media to heart and just believe whatever you see. And like I say, we are always open to be fact-checked. If you want to fact-check anything we say, do that. Engage with us. We invite people to come and challenge us. And we invite individuals to come and challenge us on what we are basically presenting. Come so we can deconstruct your propaganda. So till then, next time, this is Yusuf Ismail for on behalf of the South African Debate Initiative, and Brother Mohammed, my good friend, signing off. And thank you, John, for making this a good interactive session, and your contribution is much appreciated.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. If you brothers want to leave, feel free. I just want to quickly make an announcement. I don't want to take too much of your time. I just want to mention that brother Rican from America donated $5. Appreciate that. That will be going to the project that we have just started, the Coventry Faith Foundation. I've just started an orphanage project in Somalia, I should say. We've just bought a building. Let me see. Yeah, here we are. We just brought this building now for orphanage, and we are going to refurbish it. And it's being used currently already, but for a handful of orphans. And as you can see there, so all my donations, super chats, super stickers, memberships for the last month and this month will be going to the Somalia, the project. As you can see in the bottom right hand corner, you can see my name, Mr. Mohammed Ashraf Dad. And as you can see, I'm the treasurer and a vice chair of the charity. So that's fantastic news. I'm hoping to get the sheikh or the brother who actually was physically there on our show next week to do a presentation regarding the orphanage and what we can help, how we can help the orphans benefit from the orphanage. So yeah, I really appreciate your contributions. If you want to make a small donation, a monthly donation of £1 to the Coventry Faith Foundation, the bank details there in the ticker below. That will go directly to the Coventry Faith Foundation charity account. With super stickers and super chats and memberships, YouTube normally take a 30% off from all super stickers and super chats. So if you want to make a £1 donation a month, that'd be fantastic. A pound will get maybe 2 to 3 meals for the brothers and sisters in Somalia per day. So that will be much appreciated. So this is what Coventry Faith Foundation, or CovFF, means. It's Coventry Faith Foundation. We are actually a registered charity. 1119857 is our charity number. So we just kind of like going to continue moving forward and trying our best to make the world a better place, slowly but surely, inshallah. So yeah, once again, thank you for joining us, Brother Yusuf. Jazakallah khair. Brother John, thank you so much. And this is your brother Muhammad from CovFF. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.